Now, even though it's been a while since we went through all the most popular dividend growth style ETFs and 5 of my personal favorites, and really dug into each ETF, went over their own objectives and strategies, and put them head to head to see which one is really best. In today's video, we're going to do exactly that. I'm going to share with you guys my personal 5 favorite, highest quality dividend growth style ETFs that have all done outstanding historically. We're going to go over every single one of them individually, share each of the ETF's objectives and how they work, etc. Then later on, towards the end of the video, we're going to stack them up head to head like you can see right here, and I'm going to show you guys which ETF is really best and which one is worst. But on top of that, I'm also going to share with you which ETF is my personal favorite. So I promise you, if you're a dividend growth investor, make sure to stick around, drop a like down below, and let's get right into this. My A to Z dividend investing ebook has helped countless dividend investors get started with their journey. And my custom dividend tracker that I'm constantly using here on the channel has also helped so many investors stay on track and allow them to see their dividend income in real time. Well, today I have another treat for you guys. I'm not only going to offer you my A to Z dividend investing ebook and the custom dividend tracker, but also just for a short limited time, I'm going to be adding in my brand new weekly dividend blueprint ebook to show you how you can get started with weekly dividend ETFs and add this into your investing strategy. This offer is not going to last long, so go ahead and click the first link down below in my description, and you're going to get both ebooks and the custom dividend tracker bundle. But like I said, please act fast because this won't be around for long. Now let's get back into the video. Now, the first of 5, one of my favorite highest quality dividend growth style ETFs is still the iShares Core Dividend Growth ETF, or DGRO. Now, it says right here on the DGRO website, why DGRO? Number 1, DGRO offers low-cost exposure to U.S. stocks focused on dividend growth, which is exactly what we're looking for as dividend growth investors. Number 2, access companies that have a history of sustained dividend growth and that are broadly diversified across industries. And number 3, use at the core of your portfolio to seek income. The investment objective says the iShares Core Dividend Growth ETF seeks to track the investment results of an index composed of U.S. equities with a history of consistently growing dividends. Now, even though a lot of these different ETFs are going to have some overlap, some crossover when it comes to either strategy and or even actual holdings, every single one of these ETFs are going to be a little bit different. Like for example, DGRO has over 400 different individual stocks inside the ETF, some of the biggest names being things like JP Morgan, Johnson & Johnson, Broadcom, again, very consistent, familiar names you're going to see across all of these. Now, the next dividend growth style ETF that we have to go over is SCHD, or the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF. And just as a side note, this one is my personal favorite, and I'll share with you why later on. But some of the highlights of this ETF says straightforward, low cost, also potentially tax efficient. The fund can serve as part of the core or complement in a diversified portfolio, tracks an index focused on quality and sustainability of dividends, and maybe most importantly for SCHD, it invests in stocks selected for fundamental strength relative to their peers based on financial ratios, which is exactly how names either get in or get out of the ETF's underlying. Now, there's around 100 different names in SCHD. Some of the top names, again, familiar: Coca-Cola, we have AbbVie, we have Cisco, Amgen, Pfizer, Chevron, etc. Next up, we have a few Vanguard ETFs that I have to include in this video as some of my favorites. The Vanguard High Dividend Yield ETF, VYM, is one of my favorites and one of the best of all time. Now, VYM's summary is seeks to track the performance of the FTSE High Dividend Yield Index, which measures the investment return of common stocks of companies characterized by high dividend yields. Also important for us dividend investors, it says provides a convenient way to track the performance of stocks that are forecasted to have above average dividend yields. Now, VYM has a massive portfolio of over 500 single stocks within this, so you're getting a massive amount of diversification. Some of the top names being things like Broadcom, JP Morgan, ExxonMobil, Walmart. Again, blue chip familiar names that I don't think any of us have a problem having exposure to. Another Vanguard ETF is going to be on my top 5 list when it comes to dividend growth ETFs. VIG is another one of my favorites. I've been buying this one over the last year or so, the Vanguard Dividend Appreciation ETF, which the product summary says seeks to track the performance of the S&P US Dividend Growers Index, large cap equity, emphasizing stocks with a record of growing their dividends year over year. Now, with VIG, you have around 337 different stocks within this portfolio, names that have the potential to grow a little bit faster, which I personally love. To be more specific, names like Broadcom, Apple, JP Morgan, Microsoft, names like Visa, United Health Group, again, super solid blue chip dividend growth names. Now, lastly, the number 5 ETF on this list of my personal favorite and what I think are the highest quality dividend growth ETFs is DGRW, the WisdomTree US Quality Dividend Growth Fund. And it says right here, WisdomTree US Quality Dividend Growth Fund seeks to track the investment results of dividend-paying large cap companies with growth characteristics in the US equity markets. Now, the thing I like about DGRW is that the portfolio is made up of dividend growth names, but a little bit more on the growth side. So if you don't care as much about dividends and you want a little bit more growth potential, DGRW is another one to look into. Now, before we go through the very important numbers and I share with you guys which of these ETFs is truly the best, which one is the worst out of these, and all the numbers you're ever going to want to know, I wanted to once again hit on the fact that SCHD is my personal favorite, and this is just simply because this ETF offers the highest starting yield, and as a 32-year-old investor that doesn't necessarily want to retire today or tomorrow, but maybe use my dividends in the next 2, 4, 6, 8 years, SCHD's 3.6% more or less starting yield is going to make it much easier for me to generate a lot more cash flow a lot sooner. Now, that doesn't mean that SCHD is the perfect ETF out of all these if you, of course, don't want to retire in the next decade. Maybe you want to retire in 20, 30 years. Well, then maybe in that case, some of the lower yielders, higher growth potential ETFs could be more advantageous. But for me personally, SCHD's dividend yield and dividend growth historically is enough for me to make it my #1 pick. But now to get into the numbers, the most important part, if we were to stack up DGRO, SCHD, VYM, VIG, and DGRW, and use total return as a metric, and this is over the last decade or so, more or less, every single year, more or less, you can see these ETFs track pretty close to each other, and this is because, again, there's a lot of portfolio overlap, and again, the strategies are very similar throughout a lot of these. But crazy enough, we were once again to look at total return, which is dividends plus price return included. Over the last, say, 10 or so years, more or less, the #1 ETF over this time frame as far as total return goes is DGRW with 261% total return. #2 would be DGRO at 231%. Then we have VIG, then we have SCHD, and then we have lastly VYM. So over this time frame, because of the growth underlying names, I think DGRW easily outperforms. And again, in the future, if we see names like Microsoft and Apple, for example, keep growing, DGRW is probably going to keep growing too. Now, during this time frame, VYM has struggled the most at 183% total return, which honestly still is not bad whatsoever. But SCHD, my personal favorite, sort of landed somewhere in the middle, which is more or less where I expected. Now, I thought it was also kind of interesting to see what these ETFs have done since inception as far as performance goes. So DGRO has offered almost 12% return every year since inception, which is outstanding. SCHD almost 13%, VYM almost 9%, VIG around 10%, and then DGRW at over 13%. So once again, the underlying names in DGRW, names like Microsoft and Apple, definitely outperformed the others, which still shocks me because DGRW out of all these is probably the least talked about dividend growth ETF for whatever reason. Now, I say this all to say that all these different ETFs that I talked about in this video, in my opinion, are great foundational pillar positions in a long-term dividend growth portfolio that if you wanted to hold on to any of these names and be exposed to different stocks like JP Morgan, names like Home Depot, names like Walmart, again, tons of blue chip names here that are probably going to keep growing over time, at least in my opinion, I think any one of these ETFs would be just fine. But that's why I also think it's very important to watch videos like this one and like other videos that I make, and definitely subscribe to my channel because I actually go through and share with you guys the underlying strategies and objectives of all the different ETFs out there so you can see which ETF matches exactly what you're looking for. So now that we went through the objectives, the strategies, the performance of DGRO, DGRW, VIG, VYM, and SCHD, and we even found out which the best ETF and worst ETF is based off of historical total return, I lastly want to hear from you guys down below. If I were to ask you to pick only one of these ETFs and hold on to it forever, which one are you picking? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like on it and subscribe for more future content like this. Thanks as always for stopping by, and if you are interested in investing, make sure to check out these recent videos I posted right here.